both to those in the audience here tonight and to those on the YouTube live stream. I'm Cynthia White, Chair of the Bay Village Chapter. The League of Women Voters was formed 101 years ago following a long battle to win the right to vote for women. For 101 years, we have been a nonpartisan, activist, grassroots organization with both women and men as members. We are proud to be nonpartisan, neither supporting nor opposing candidates or political parties at any level of government, but always working on vital issues of concern to members of the public. The Bay League was formed in 1948 and has been in continuous operation ever since, providing impartial voting information and forums such as this one to the Bay community. A healthy democracy requires educated, informed voters, and that is why we are here tonight. 7 of the 8 candidates for school board were able to take time from their busy schedules to come here before us to let us get to know them and what they would like to contribute to the Bay school system. We know it takes a great deal of courage to run for public office, and especially to stand before your fellow citizens to take our questions in a format such as this, so we are very grateful for your participation. We also want to thank you, the audience, for taking your time from your busy schedules to attend tonight. Your role is equally important. You are here to become an informed voter, the most powerful tool of a healthy democracy. We ask that you ask thoughtful questions and that you give full attention to each of these candidates who will be working hard to answer those questions. All questions must be submitted in writing. All 8 candidates have already provided written answers to 6 questions, which you can find in the voter guide, in the Westlake Bay Village Observer, which you may have gotten as you came in and which is in the hallway in the back. And also, there's 3 questions in the voter guide and 3 more questions on the vote411.org website. We have already received many questions via email, and we'll be able to continue to receive them in that format for those listening to the live stream. We will have runners moving through the audience throughout the forum to collect your question cards. Please make your questions short, clear, and legible. We have 4 league members at the table, or maybe 5, who will be reviewing the questions to avoid repetition, provide a diversity of topics, and assure appropriateness. We ask you to refrain from audible reactions during the forum so we have the most time possible for questions, and also so the live stream listening audience can have a good quality experience. Please mute your phone and refrain from flash photography or video. This program is being live streamed and recorded for future viewing on YouTube. Personal video recording is forbidden by league policy. The candidates each have a table in the hallway, and you will have time available after the forum is adjourned until 9 o'clock to meet with them individually and ask any questions we were not able to get to within the time constraints of the forum. Each candidate has also provided individual contact information in the voter guide for remaining questions. We are very fortunate to have as our moderator this evening, Janice Patterson of the Westlake North Olmsted League of Women Voters. Janice is a past president of the Ohio League of Women Voters and an experienced moderator. So I will hand the mic to you, Janice, and the forum can begin. Thank you.
Welcome. A school board is usually of high interest, and especially so this year in Bay Village, where 8 candidates are seeking 3 open seats for 4-year terms each. 7 of the candidates are with us tonight, and this requires that we keep all of the statements and question period very short so that we can be out of the building on time. Even with the time constrictions, I'm sure you'll go away with some definite ideas about who you would like to see on the school board in 2022. Here are the ground rules. Candidates will make 90-second opening statements. In the interest of time, we will not have closing statements. I will pose questions after those opening statements to all 7 candidates in a rotating order that's designed for fairness. Everybody gets a first time and a last time, and in between it's all mixed up. Candidates will only have 90 seconds to answer their questions, so I've asked them to think fast. The timers in the front row will signal the candidates as their time runs down. We have questions in advance of the forum, in email form. We're taking questions from the audience. There's going to be many more questions than you can imagine, but we're going to do the best we can to get an appropriate set to discuss tonight. So, off we go. Opening statements. Mr. Dwyer.
Good evening. My name is Scott Dwyer, and I am a lifelong resident of Bay Village. I graduated from Bay High in 1987. My wife has been a teacher in the district since 1998, and we have 3 kids who are products of the Bay Village City Schools. We have a sophomore in college, and we have 2 boys who are a senior and a freshman in high school. I'm very familiar with the benefits of a productive and successful public school education. And that's why I'm running it, because I want that to continue for our students. I distinctly remember teaching our kids when they were little how to ride a bike. And they were very excited. Sometimes they were scared about doing so. And when we finally let go, they were on the seat and we let them go on the bike. The first thing they would do is they would look down at the pedals. And when they looked down at the pedals, they would fall every single time. It wasn't until they began to look up and look down the sidewalk toward their goal that they would succeed in riding a bike. We have a lot of short-term issues that we have to resolve and discuss. They're very important, but we have to keep our eyes on the long term. Hiring a superintendent, prudent fiscal management, educating the whole student, and working together. You've heard that hope is not a strategy. It's very true. Fear is also not a strategy. Understanding the long-term strategy and keeping that at the focus of our efforts is really important, and I ask that we continue to pedal and look down the sidewalk toward our long-term success. Thank you.
Mr. Mosier.
All right, good evening, everyone. I am Patrick Mosier, father of 3, husband to my lovely and talented wife, Gayatri, and a 25-year resident of Bay Village. Community is very important to my family and to me. For most of the last 20 years, I have been dedicated to serving the community of Bay Village and its schools. Whether it was being volunteered to coach my son's soccer team, which I was, or leading the Kiwanis Club through the pandemic, which I did, I have not wavered in my commitment to improving the lives of Bay Village children. Through many years of volunteering for PTA, Boy Scouts, and levies, I understand the challenges of teaching our children, inspire them to stretch their horizons. I also understand the challenges of maintaining a top-quality school system. School board governance is a difficult and often thankless task, fraught with the challenges of politics and securing funding. My vision for Bay Schools is a simple one to say, but maybe a difficult one to implement. We're going to restore stability to the district and confidence in our leadership. We are going to put aside partisanship and bring the school system and this community together for the betterment of our children. Educational excellence is what the people of Bay Village have come to expect. We will work with our outstanding teachers and staff to provide the best curriculum. We will conduct a superintendent search and hire a superintendent who represents the best of our community. And we will do all of this in a fiscally responsible manner without sacrificing our academic excellence or the well-being of our children. I'm proud to be endorsed by the Bay Teachers Association, and I offer my services to the people of Bay Village. Whatever the outcome of the election, I will continue to serve this community. Thank you.
Mr. Jones.
Good evening. Good evening, and thank you for hosting this event tonight. My name is Dave Richard Jones IV, also known as Rick Jones, for there's a little confusion out there if you have not met me. In 1997, I was proud to become the 3rd generation of my family to graduate from Bay High School. And as my mother pointed out last night, a member of my family has been in the school district since 1930, pretty much every decade. As I like to say, I bleed blue and white, and I love everything about Bay Village, including their schools. My wife Christine and I had little discussion on where we were going to settle down with my 2 young boys, 1st grader and 3rd grader. Outside of my job as an institutional financial advisor dedicated to working with community banks in the small town Midwest, you'll usually find me around the sports field in Bay Village, coaching basketball, baseball, football, soccer, and working with our young youth and transitioning the lessons I learned from the great teachers of Bay Village. Earlier this year, many of my friends advised me about what was going on at the Board of Education and the school system. So I started to attend. And the rumbling that I heard disheartened me. Various groups of adults attacking our school districts and our board, and I felt like I needed something to do. Therefore, my desire in running for the school board is to maintain the high standards for my son, their friends, and all the children who will be going through our school district that I was accustomed to and promoted my life and made my goals. So therefore, thank you very much. I look forward to hearing any and all questions.
Mr. Stojic.
Good evening. My name is Andrey Stojic. My family and I have been proud to make Bay Village our home for the past 12 years. We have 3 children who have gone through or are currently in the Bay school system. My oldest has graduated, my middle kid is 17 and is in the high school, and my youngest is 13 in the middle school. The reason I'm running for the school board comes down to 3 important questions. One is service. This is an opportunity for me to give back to a school system that's had a transformative effect on my children. And I think we've all experienced that with our educators and the school system that we have. It's also about stewardship. We're enjoying the benefit of an outstanding school system that was laid before us by the prior parents, past residents, and past educators who made it a commitment to have a high-performing school district. It's our responsibility to continue that tradition, to continue to build now for the kids who are here, and leave a legacy of a school system that will be strong for the children who are yet to enter into our schools. And also it's about opportunity. I think our community is strong, our educators are outstanding, our kids are brilliant, and with our committed parents, we can produce a high-performing school that maintains our academic excellence.
Thank you. Ms. Huntley.
Hi, I am Amy Huntley. I am also a Bay grad, and all 6 of my children have gone K-12 through Bay schools. My husband is a retired Bay teacher, and I have served on the Bay School Board for 17 years. I am passionate about education, and that started when I was a freshman in college, and I realized that most of my peer group in college didn't have the same benefits I did from a Bay education. I have since put that passion to work as a PTA volunteer, music booster volunteer, also with Levy committees prior to being on the board, and then with 17 years on the Bay School Board. I have decided to throw my hat back into the ring again because I still feel passionate about our schools. I am concerned about some of the things I've been hearing, and I want to make sure that we come together as a community. Unity has always been something that Bay Village has had. We can have different opinions. We can become respectful with how we discuss those, and we can find common ground to move forward. And I think that's essential for our district as we start a superintendent search. I, as a board member, was involved with 2 superintendent searches, so I have some experience with that as well. And I just want to do my part to help bring the community back together and unified behind our students so that all students have success.
Mr. Schulz.
Hi, my name is Scott Schulz. I'm from Anchorage, Alaska. My wife Ruth and 2 girls are in the district. We relocated to Ohio in 2015 so I could start work as the Vice President for Enrollment Management at Baldwin Wallace University. Bay Village welcomed us with open arms, and we've made a home in this very special place. Last year I was appointed to the school board, which my kids thought was both amazing and mortifying at the same time. We've navigated unprecedented challenges over this last years, but we've stayed true to our district's values. And I can't tell you how many parents have come up to me and just said how thankful they are to have their kids in school, learning and growing. In the next 12 months, the school board has some really important decisions to make regarding the superintendent and the end of our levy cycle. We need representatives on the board who have an expertise in education policy and experience with multi-billion-dollar budgets. We need people who trust the recommendations of medical professionals to guide efforts to maximize safety and instructional time. We need people with an overwhelming commitment to excellence for every child, including those with gifted needs as well as those who need some academic support or mental health counseling. And we need parents and current students on the board, so the board is directly impacted by the district's policies and can relate to the needs of families. I spent the last year serving this community and earning the respect and endorsement of all 4 sitting members of the school board, many parents and teachers, and now I ask for your support tonight so we can reaffirm the district and the community's values. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor.
Good evening. My name is John Taylor, and I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's forum. 17 years ago, our family decided to call Bay Village home. And one of the key criteria for making that decision was related to the performance of the school system. And the Bay Village school system has completely exceeded our expectations, not only for our older children's classes of 12 and 13, but also for our middle schoolers, classes of 29 and 28, but also for our granddaughters who are the classes of 32 and 37. So we have a vested interest with regards to the overall school system. Now, Bay Village is a tremendous community. The Bay Village school system is a tremendous asset to the community with excellent teachers who are committed to enrich the lives of our children through productive and fair education. Also, the Board of Education should strive, their primary focus should strive for academic excellence and be able to provide that excellence to each of those students. And also the Board of Education is responsible and accountable to the taxpayers in Bay Village. And they need to provide value and to both the students and to the citizens. This election is really about trust and communication. As a business major and business consultant, I've been able to spend multiple years helping clients understand the importance of communication. And I plan to do that here in the Board of Education. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidates, first question. What should be the next steps for the school board regarding the equity audit? Mr. Schulz.
Well, I think the first thing is to make it very clear that equity is nothing new to Bay Village. That in fact, this is a community where we look out for each other's kids. Anybody who's been in the neighborhoods sees kids out playing throughout the summer, kids running around. Sometimes they end up feeding them. Sometimes your kids running around being fed by somebody else. But we've always looked out for each other. And as that sort of a place, it's a place where we want to see the best for every one of our kids. Equality, to be defined, is really the commitment to equal opportunity. But equity means that we're going to provide the support that every individual one of our students needs to achieve the outcome. Now, I know that definition of that outcome is where people get a little concerned. I think that if it's an equal outcome, we're all trying to get everybody to the middle of mediocrity. But it's the context that matters in education and the policy of education, because equity in this context is about every child becoming their best selves. And for some, that means advanced placement courses, it means investments in gifted education, and for others, as I've said, it's other different types of resources. The next step really is for us to double down on the work that we've been doing before there were concerns about equity, and that is to bring the community together, talk about ideas, find new needs as they may exist. All-day kindergarten was one that we discovered and allowed us to meet the needs of our community, and we need to continue to look for other needs and meet those as well.
Ms. Huntley, same question. Next steps in the equity audit.
I agree with Scott. I believe that Bay has done an excellent job working to meet the needs of all students, and that's what's important, is making sure that we don't create barriers intentionally or unintentionally for any student. Every student's needs are different. I know just in my little world of my 6 children, their needs were all different, and I would never put any one of them ahead of the other as saying their needs needed to be prioritized over the other. So I think Bay has done a good job in doing that. I would like to see a committee get created and have discussion over get more background, more input from the community over things that they see that could be issues and see how we would want to address them. I think it's important to hear all of the potential issues and try and address those in terms of equity, equality, academics, the whole gamut.
Thank you. Mr. Dwyer, same question. What should the school board do? Next steps?
So it's my understanding that the equity audit has actually been completed, and it is now part of the district strategic plan. And so I would certainly support that, and I think we need to do some more work in understanding exactly what's intended by that strategic plan and bring together folks from the teachers, from the administrators, from the community to understand what the next steps are. I think it's important to talk about. I agree that in my mind, equity means equal opportunity. It doesn't mean equal outcomes, and I don't think it's fair to assume that our teachers are teaching to equal outcomes in this day and age. I'll give you an example. If you're, for example, a second grade teacher teaching reading, you have kids who can read at a second grade level, you have kids who can read at a first grade level, you can have kids who can read at a third or fourth grade level. In the room where you're teaching reading, there are access to books that allow those kids to read at their level, and the idea is to get them to be better readers by the end of the year. So I think that's a great example of how teachers are utilizing equal opportunity while still teaching the same subject at varying levels for varying kids, given their circumstances at the time.
Thank you. Same question, Mr. Mosier. What are the next steps for the school board?
There's a lot in a very simple question there. I know that an audit was completed in the spring. I have to admit I'm not familiar with all the results of the audit. The equity audit was designed to identify if there were areas that needed attention. Obviously, next steps would require one to understand whether those areas were actually identified and whether something needs attention. Specifically, and as I say this, I'm gonna quote my wife, that Bay schools have always been committed to the best they can to equity. Do we do everything right? No. Do we do everything right in our daily lives every day? No, we do not. Every day we can learn a little bit and do a little bit better. I think the equity audit, such as it is an opportunity for us to take a breath and see if there's something we can do better than we already do it today. Specific next steps would really depend upon what those results say. Are there weaknesses that need addressing? Are there areas of concern? I am confident in our administrators and our teachers and our staff that if there are areas that need attention, they will get them. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question, Mr. Taylor. What are the next steps for the school board?
It sounds like the previous candidates did not have a full understanding of the equity commitment. And frankly, the equity commitment is why I got involved with this. It made implied accusations that there were systemic inequities and barriers set up within the school system. And I thought this was unfair and misguided allegation against the teachers of the school system. So in the picture that they currently painted, it wasn't associated to the comment, which is on the website at Bay Village, and it has these exact words on there. And the rollout of the equity commitment was also very poorly managed. No one knew what it was about. And as I mentioned during my opening, this is all about communication and trust. And frankly, the only systemic attributes here that I have evidence in Bay Village are related to fairness, kindness, encouragement, compassion, challenging, and success. Those are the things that I've seen are the systemic attributes in Bay Village. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question, Mr. Stojic.
So every good organization reflects on what it does well and what it can do better. The equity audit is that type of survey. And when you look at the actual data and what we've been able to see so far, it actually shows that we're doing a lot of good things. We see a teacher base that is committed and believes that we're providing an equitable education for our students. And equity has been something that's been embedded in our curriculum for years. It's not about equality, it's about trying to uplift all of our students. So that means that we're challenging our highest achievers to be better than what they even think they can be. And also making sure that we provide the help and intervention we need to make sure that our kids who are otherwise smart and brilliant have a chance to catch up and achieve their full academic potential. We do that with early interventional reading programs. We do that with 504 plans, IEPs, and other strategies that help these kids, uplift them, and make them more confident and better learners. I support equity. I think that the strategic plan reaffirms what we've been doing well and recommits us to do even better. I don't think that we have major systemic problems in equity, but I think we can always look for ways to get better and improve the academic experience for our children.
Thank you. Mr. Jones.
Thank you. When I looked at the audit results, what I saw was what I always have thought. Our teachers and administrators are doing a great job. And going forward, I think, unfortunately, like what is being missed is how great Bay is in terms of equity. We have an award-winning music program. We have an award-winning yearbook, newspaper. We have a great advanced placement course. We have an excellent special ed course. We have state championship athletic teams. There is something for every student out there, so the equity is already there. You have to try harder to find something not to do than you do in Bay schools. I'm a prime example. I started in the 2nd and 3rd grade in a STEM reading program in speech therapy with a great person, Celeste Thornton. By the time I graduated, I was promoted all the way up to advanced classes. So the opportunities are there for everybody, but everybody is not the same, and every student can't be treated the same. So I think instead of focusing on the negatives, we need to focus on what we have going for us. Outstanding programs in all situations, outstanding opportunities for everybody in our school system, and that is what I think we should promote and not discourage. Thank you.
Thank you. For those of you who are on the live stream version, we welcome you. We had a technical difficulty, and some of them are just joining in as we get ready now for our second question. Candidates, what factors do you consider when you think about whether you would support a new levy or not? And the first question goes to Ms. Huntley.
There are a variety of factors that go into a levy. For anybody not familiar with a levy cycle, when you actually approve a levy, you're approving a fixed dollar amount. So the district, you're approving to give an extra, in the last levy it was somewhere around $2 million per year to the district. So the dollar amount is what's being approved, and it is fixed. As your property goes up and gets reappraised, the millage actually gets rolled back so that the district still only collects the $2 million. So when we look at a levy, we have to look right from the beginning of when the levy passes, what can we do to stretch those dollars? How can we do things in the most economic way, with the priority being the students? So in looking at a future levy, are there places that we can first trim? What do we anticipate being the needs of the district going forward? Because you have to anticipate what the expenses will be for a levy over the time period between levies. So we want to first look at, are there things in the budget that can be eliminated? Are there programs that aren't meeting the needs of our students and need to be adjusted? Are there things that aren't really necessary that could be eliminated? But first and foremost, our priority is making sure that we maintain the excellent program for our students.
Thank you. Same question, Mr. Mosier. What factors will make a difference to you in supporting the levy?
I was going to say ditto, but that doesn't seem appropriate.
Sure.
Amy and I are very much on the same page here, so I don't want to repeat a lot of what she said, but I do want to say something. A levy sounds like, and I've said this to many people, a levy is one of the few taxes we get to vote on, and we feel helpless that our taxes get raised all the time, and so many people tell me, I'm going to take a stand. I'm going to take a stand, I'm not going to vote for this. And the funny thing about this, of all the taxes that we pay, this is one of the most important. A levy for the schools is about whether we believe in the school system, whether we believe the product that we're getting is a quality product and we want to continue investing in it. As Ms. Huntley mentioned, a levy cycle is finite, 3 or 4. We've been very lucky here with the fiscal responsibility of our former boards and our superintendents and such. We're at year 5 right now since the last levy. And we think we can last another year. That's amazing. Many school districts, it's 3 or 4 years. We do need to look at whether there are expenditures we have to make. And the expenditures we have to make is maintaining the outstanding experience that our children have. So from that perspective, I think I pretty much agree with most of what Ms. Huntley said. Thank you.
Same question, Mr. Taylor. What are the issues, the factors that will help you make your decision?
Thank you. Historically, we've been on a 3-year levy cycle, and now we're, as Mr. Mosier mentioned, we're going into our 6th year. And expenses started to exceed revenue in 2019 at about $700,000. And based on current forecasts, we're going to exceed it by $3.7 million this year. So there's an issue with regards to the board's preparation for doing this. This should have been something that we've been preparing for, and that we are obligated via the CUP report to report this information on a 5-year forecast. And we've been negligent with regards to preparing ourselves for a levy. So the number one thing we need to do first is unite with the community, with the teachers, with the property owners, and make sure they understand the significance of this levy. So the number one thing right now we have to do is make sure that the message is clear, that people understand that this is a necessary funding source for the school systems, and that we band together and unite and get through the next passage. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dwyer, same question. What factors are you thinking about regarding the levy?
I think it's important to keep in mind the long-term goals of the school system, as well as being prudent in managing the fiscal budget. I agree with what Amy and Pat said. We've done a great job. I think the school district has done a great job. There are always ways in which we look to improve how we manage expenses, and we need to look at external consultants and things like that. But overall, we want to maintain the small class sizes. We want to maintain the fact that we're not overspending, because 80% of Bay residents don't have kids in school. So if you think about them, they're concerned about their taxes, they're concerned about their property values. At the end of the day, when we finally determine that we have to do a levy is an investment not only in the school but in the community, because as you all well know, property values are in large part dependent upon a really strong school system, and that's always been one of the strengths of Bay. So we want to make sure that we manage the budget appropriately and prudently, and also, and I think we've done that for the most part. And I think we also want to make sure that we keep our long-term goals in mind, like small class sizes and academic excellence.
Same question, Mr. Schulz.
Yeah, like so many families, we found Bay because of the schools. We were looking for rankings guides. Cleveland Magazine is actually where I initially found Bay Village, and its reputation with its schools was second to none. So the process, I guess, that I would work through is, first of all, what's the immediate need? We did enter into the current levy cycle with a 4-year thought in mind. We're clearly at the end of that. The second thing I think about is, do we have responsible managers? This school board hired Megan Rohde, who's come in as our treasurer and been absolutely phenomenal. We've been looking around constantly for additional funds. Our EMIS coordinator secured grants that have allowed us to stretch our levy cycle, and we've restructured a number of vendor contracts. So we have capable leadership in the district that is putting us in a strong position to stretch this to a 5th year. The last thing I'd note is thinking about the larger needs. This is where strategic planning comes into play. The world is changing. We know that we've got to invest in our students. World language programs are one such example. We know our facilities are aging. We need to be looking around to make sure that our facilities are up to a level that they can meet the needs of our students now and in the coming years. And we need to address the labor shortages that we're all facing across many different industries that can lead to higher attrition and additional costs. That's the process that I would work through as we continue to look at this upcoming levy.
Thank you. Mr. Jones, same question. What factors will you be considering?
I think everyone knows we're going to need a levy here in the next few years. Again, the board has done a great job stretching out through the pandemic. But things are going to need to change here. Again, going to the school board meetings, we're seeing a divided community. And I think most people in this crowd tonight will say they moved here for the schools. It's the #1 asset of Bay Village. So we need to bring people together here to make sure we can pass this levy. That's the #1 thing we need to do. And have a board that is going to be made up of the differential and the demographic of Bay Village. Now going forward, there are other issues in terms of our buildings. They are aging. The bond market right now, and I have this in my background as financial advisor, is still near all-time low rates. Can we tap that, accelerate some programs? And I pretty much realized we're not going to get much more state funding. So we need to figure out what the proper is to, as Mr. Dwyer said, make sure the 80% of the people in this town who don't have a student pay will support our levy. I lived through the 1992 strike, which was, we couldn't pass a levy on that. That can never happen again. We need to unite our community, get everyone behind our schools again, and make sure we can fund it and make sure we promote the excellence of execution for excellent of education for our students. Thank you.
Mr. Stojic.
So first off, I'm committed to moving and passing the next levy. We have a high-performing school district that has earned a passage of the levy, and our children deserve it. In terms of how I would approach this, I think given the current environment and some of the concerns of the community, we need to immediately get all stakeholders together, from the community, our educators, our parents, to come together to work on putting together our ideas and our priorities with the next school levy. I think that also means reflecting on the past 4 to 5 years during the last cycle of this levy to see where we've made good investments with the dollars that we've had, where we've done maybe not as well, and where we've done poorly, so that we can reprioritize in the next levy and create a clear vision for the voters as to what we want to do, where that money is going to go, and why it's so important. Once we have that, we put that committee together to go ahead and constructively lay out a levy that we can present in a transparent fashion to the community, clearly stating what our goals are. And then lastly, as a member of the board, I'm going to go out there and make sure that I get a broad range of support from the community, as has been said, so that we can pass the levy without any question.
Thank you. Candidates, you're doing a good job on the short and sweet answers. We'll see if this one works. The question, starting off, will be Mr. Taylor. What are the top 3 qualifications you would look for in seeking a new superintendent?
I actually have 4, so we can start with there. First of all, a proven track record of high academic excellence and experience in running a school district of our size and our tier grading. Thirdly, shared values with the community, which is critically important. And also characteristics, leadership characteristics that help unite. And we've talked about the divisive environment that we have here. So having those characteristics to be able to unite people together is significant. In the past, I've had many discussions with voters and board members, and the atmosphere that was developed over the last several years under the previous superintendent was more of a closed system, and it didn't really encourage conversation, and it didn't really encourage new ideas. It didn't really encourage different thoughts, different approaches, which is a recipe for disaster as far as being able to progress. So we need to implement a rigorous system with the criteria that is already set and structured, and use the parents' involvement, the teachers' involvement, and also the community's involvement to make sure that we make a good selection. And you've heard a couple of the candidates to my right who have said that they helped choose the last superintendent. And from my experience and what I've heard, that was not a popular choice within the community or the teachers.
Thank you. Same question about superintendent factors. Mr. Jones.
Yes, I think the most important decision right now for the upcoming school board will be the superintendent. As Mr. Taylor kind of mentioned, I think the last time was kind of a failure. So the person we hired came in, and if you spoke to anybody from the Sandusky Perkins, who I did run into many parents over the summer at baseball tournaments and soccer tournaments, they were thanking us and couldn't believe that we hired her. Our board then gave her a 5-year extension, which was unprecedented for our board. I want to know why and how. We never got answers. We need to find the next superintendent who's going to be here for the long haul. So after a 5-year extension, she left under a 1.5 years later. That can't work. They should not be a stepping stone for a future position in someone's career. It should be the ending point. We are a great school system with quality teachers, administrators, parents, students, and we should be the place where people are coming to want to come. We need to work with someone who's going to work with the board, the teachers, the administrators, and the public. Be open. Don't have anyone fearful to talk back against you or be against you. Someone who's going to work with everybody in this community to best promote our schools. And that's what I see as the factors we need for the next superintendent.
Mr. Dwyer, same questions about superintendent qualifications.
So I would also look for somebody who has experience in running a school system of similar size and success. I think that's really important. We want somebody who understands the high expectations and standards that we have here in Bay. I think we need somebody who's collaborative and a good listener. We have a lot of very passionate, important stakeholders in this system. We have administrators, we have teachers, we have parents, we have the city, we have the union. All of those are incredibly important stakeholders in this district, and one of the reasons that makes Bay so great is we get a lot of input in the success of our district. And also, I think we need somebody who's a strategic thinker, somebody who's thinking about the long term, somebody who has shown the ability to think about not just issues today, but long-term issues like land utilization, building maintenance, things like that, things that we have to think about for the long term. I personally have over 20 years of executive level hiring experience across 6 different organizations in multiple industries, so I feel very comfortable that the experience that I could bring could help ensure that we hire a good quality superintendent.
Same question, Mr. Schulz.
I think I'll start by noting that Superintendent Hausman wasn't perfect, and certainly the two of us had our differences as well, but she led the district through the first phase of COVID, and I think to characterize her as a failure is completely unfair. When you're looking for a superintendent, obviously you're going to need to have somebody who has expertise in K-12 pedagogy. The world is changing. We've got to make sure that we're preparing students for a changing world with regard to critical thinking, problem solving, the jobs of tomorrow that don't even exist yet. We absolutely need somebody who has the capacity to be a strong collaborator, to build bridges, both internally within the district, within our individual buildings, as well as externally in the district. And lastly, it's about vision. We've got to have a strong vision for the future and really an unwavering commitment to all the programs, policies, and facilities that we need to provide excellence for all. Thanks.
Thank you. Audience, please refrain from clapping in the future. It just takes up a little time and it's a little unfair to the candidates, I think, in several ways. Mr. Stojic, the same question about the factors that you think are important for a superintendent.
So obviously this is why this election matters so much. Who we elect to the board is going to directly impact who we select as our next superintendent. Our next superintendent has to be someone who comes with experience, hopefully someone who has been a superintendent in a high-performing school district that understands the needs of a district like Bay Village, can innovate and find new ways to improve our school system. They also have to have experience in handling the financial aspects that come with administering the school district. For me, I'm looking at 4 qualities. First off is commitment. As has been said a little bit here, Bay Village as a school district is a destination job. It's not a jumping point. The next person has to be committed to being here for years to guide our school and execute our plan and vision for the future. Secondly, they need to be accountable. They need to be transparent and honest and clear in their direction in terms of what they do financially and in terms of policy. They also need to have empathy. They need to be able to hear and listen to the voices of our community, our parents, and all the stakeholders, and take that information back to shape our policy. And lastly, they have to be an effective communicator. I think if we've learned anything over the past few months is we need a person who can clearly articulate our vision, our policies, and the direction that we're going to move into the future.
Thank you. Same question, Ms. Huntley.
I've always summed up the superintendent characteristics under kind of two categories. A successful superintendent needs to be the inside person and the outside person. By the inside person, they need to have the knowledge and the technical expertise to deal with all kinds of things, from teachers' contracts to legal issues that arise to building maintenance and building construction in our situation at one point. The outside person needs to have the communication skills to be able to build relationships, listen to the community, hear the community, agree and disagree respectfully with the community, and be able to bring those two sections of their personality together to actually accomplish all the day-to-day tasks while also addressing the various community people with input. And I feel very confident that with the community and the district that we have, we will be able to pull together from various focus groups like we did on the last two superintendent searches and get a lot of input from the community of what they're looking for and find that person that has that inside skill and outside skill.
Thank you. Mr. Mosier, 3 qualifications that you would be looking for.
All right. I was going to say experience, but I think that's 1, not 3. Obviously, in a district like this, with our expectations where they are, we need a superintendent who has experience, as has been said by, I think, the other 6 candidates up here. I would include in that building administrators as appropriate in high-performing school systems and not just previous superintendent experience. But in addition to experience, there's a couple of things. There's a person who's been mired in corporate America for the last 25 years or so, as I mostly have been. There's 2 things a leader has to have, and the superintendent is a leader. And it's not just a leader of the schools, it's a leader in the community. And there's lots of things they can have, but I think there's 2 things they have to have. They have to be critical thinkers, and they have to be consensus builders. A boss, it's easy to be the boss when you can order people around. It's a lot more difficult to be the boss when you have to inspire people to embrace your ideas when they don't always agree. So the next superintendent of schools here has to be a critical thinker to do the strategic planning and all these stuff like that. And they have to be a consensus builder, and that includes communication and listening and sometimes not getting your way. And that's what I think, and I'm confident that we will find that person. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a small pile of questions here that I'm trying to synthesize into one kind of question. Mostly they're related to definitions. Our audiences, and I'll say we have 2 because we have an in-person audience and an online streaming audience. Terms: equity, equality, systemic racism, diversity, inclusion. What are the differences? What do these mean? So my question to you is, what ideas do you have that you could implement as a school board member to help the community understand these terms? So my question goes first to Mr. Stojic.
I get 30 minutes for this, right?
The first part of the question, you want to repeat it?
No. Of course, this is the one I get there first, but no. So I think what's important for us all to realize is that we cannot be scared of words and definitions. Clearly, we need to better articulate as a board and as a school district what exactly these mean. Because a lot of these things, in terms of whether you talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, whether you talk about a culture that celebrates diversity in our schools, as well as equity, are all embedded already in our curriculum. We've been doing these for years. Our vision and the strategic plan that we keep talking about reaffirms what we do and challenges us to make it better. What I think we need to do, and I think we've seen that in the last few weeks with the board and with the community, is we need to reach out and engage. I think one of the best things that was offered were these town hall meetings forums where small groups of parents, stakeholders, community leaders could all come together and talk about these topics, understand what they mean, understand what the vision actually represents, and how we want to move forward, and get the input from the community. I think we need to get more, and I think if we've learned anything from this campaign, and with the reaction everybody here and after homecoming, is engagement is important. We can't just sit back and expect everything to happen on its own. We need to be involved. We need to go and ask those questions, and I believe that our teachers, our administrators, and the board will be more than open in talking about it and how we translate this into actual policy and curriculum.
Thank you. Mr. Dwyer, same question.
That's a quick 30 minutes. I could use another 30 on that one. It's a tough question to answer because there's a lot of assumptions around a lot of those words. I guess I would crystallize it like this. I believe that everybody deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. Everybody's created equal. No one set of people is better than another, and we have to get back to that. Everybody has different experiences which lead to their different perspectives too. And I feel strongly that we've got to be humble and willing to learn from other people's experiences and their perspectives. That's really important because I can tell you, I said this to my wife today, I'm smart enough to know that I'm not smart enough. I don't have all the answers, nor should I. And I want to learn from other people's perspectives. I do believe we should provide equal opportunity for every child in the school system. Not looking at equal outcomes because I don't think that's fair to anybody, but I do think equal opportunity is absolutely critically important. And look at the academic, the emotional, the physical, the social health of the individuals. We need to teach kids about racism. We have to. That's really, really important. Although we should not teach them that they're racist just because of their skin color. And so we've got to be really careful about all of those things, be willing to be humble and listen and learn from each other, and that diversity makes us better.
Thank you. Mr. Schulz, same question. What can you as a school board do to help the community understand these?
Yeah, and I think this is a nice opening where some of these are great ideas, right? The idea to define some of these terms. It sounds simple, but we just got done recently launching a new website here with the district, badly needed, moving us into the 21st century, I think, with our new website. Hats off to Karen Semantic, who's put that together. I think we need to list these terms, help to better define those for everyone so that they can understand what we mean by them. I echo what Andrey said about the town halls. Those were really remarkable experiences because they broke down walls between board members, the superintendent, the community, that brought us together. And maybe we had differences of opinion. I remember after the town hall at Westerly, I went and spoke with a mother by the name of Allison, who had a son who was struggling wearing a mask and was very concerned about that. And I said, hey, we really are. We're doing everything we can to get back to get without those masks. As soon as we are in the clear for that, we got those recommendations from the CDC and the County Board of Health. We're going to remove those. That's what we all want. So breaking down walls, I think, is really critical. I'll leave it with just an example. I mentioned all-day kindergarten. We had equal opportunity there. We had all-day kindergarten for everyone, but it had a tuition requirement. Not everybody can afford that. And so equity was providing the support by investing in our kindergarten program to make that tuition-free and accessible by all. That's equality of opportunity with the equity to support it. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor.
This summer, we just completed the equity audit, and that came back and confirmed that the issues that were brought up and the allegations were unfounded and unfair, and frankly, that's why I got involved to defend the teachers. And that's the first point. The second point is I welcome diversity. If you just take a look at how I live my life and what we do, but it's a diversity of ideas and thoughts and approaches. It's not about skin color. And it's a really encouraging environment to live in when you have those different ideas and different thoughts, and you push against what ideas, and there's a whole critical thinking process that takes place, and you encourage one another to do it. So the diversity of ideas and thoughts and approaches is what we should focus on, not on these external items that people cannot change.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
Thank you. I think as most everyone before me has said, is we need to get everyone to come together. In attending the last probably 15 board meetings, I've seen both sides, regardless of what their opinions are, coming after everybody, coming after the board, coming after our teachers, coming after our administrators. We've got to stop that. These are touch words that going around on every single news stations that, hot topics. I'm not even sure everyone, I don't know the exact definitions of what they mean, and I'm not sure everybody does either. But we need to figure out with the board, with the teachers, with the citizens, how we can come together to ensure we have quality education for our children. Let's not politicalize the school board or the schools. Let's just have great schools. In terms of that, one of the big things I didn't want to say is the board. And unfortunately, in these last 15 minutes, we've been told you're not allowed to respond. I think we should have an open dialogue at these board meetings. We're here for the citizens, we're elected by the citizens. Let's have discussions, and let's respond to people, and let's respond to what their questions are about what's going on in our schools. That might end a lot of the confusion in this town. So I think our biggest steps are we need to figure out how to come together in whatever steps we can. Let's do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mosier?
Thank you. Got to hear a lot, agree with most of it. Here's what I think. Our biggest issue is effective communication, not just communication is easy to say. Effective communication is tougher. One of our biggest struggles with everything is rhetoric, and cartoons on a website don't communicate equity. I have a lot of thought on this, being a father of mixed-race children and helping them write essays about diversity and what does it mean, and how do you communicate about it. It was very interesting, and I guess it's not quite an answer to the question, but something I want to say. I helped my son write an essay, and some people at work questioned me. They said, how could you write an essay about diversity when you're not a minority? And I said, I am a minority. There's only one me in the world. Most people are very grateful for that, by the way. There is only one me, and no one knows what I know, and no one thinks what I think. And when I think of diversity and inclusion, I want us to start focusing on the child and not the children, and not the group. I love diversity, but I love diversity of ideas and individuals, and not diversity of groups and demographics. And we need much better communication if we're going to break down those barriers. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hunt?
Well, I think it's my turn to say ditto. I won't repeat everything everybody said. I believe very much that we need to pursue everything that we can to make sure we are reflecting the needs of all students. I couldn't begin to define equity and equality adequately in a 90-second answer, but I think Scott's example earlier about reading is a good way to define equity and equality. We want to make sure that everybody has access to things and has access to the materials and the levels that they need. I would add that one of the things I would like to see us do is really learn from our past. It always troubles me that after World War I or II, Pearl Harbor, I'm terrible at history, I married the history teacher. He just flinched in the back room. Pearl Harbor, when we rounded up everybody of Japanese descent because the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. Then after 9/11, we had a lot of frustrations and people took out things against anybody from the Middle East. And then last year we had to have commercials to stop Asian hate. We need to come together, learn from our past, take steps to help our children recognize that differences should be embraced, not something that we scorn, and that will develop them the best for the future.
Thank you. Moving to another question. It has to do with strategic plan, the district's strategic plan. Since you're running for a 4-year term, I don't really think it's quite fair to ask you to comment about what we need to do to prepare for 10 years. why don't we put like a 4 to 5 year timeline on it? What do you think needs to start happening right away to make sure that the schools are in sync with the strategic plan? So the first question goes to Mr. Mosier.
How did I know I was going to get the most vague and general question and be first? Again, as I said, I work for a corporation. We talk about strategic planning all the time. In fact, part of my responsibility is, in fact, a large part of my responsibility is to be strategic when all around me are being tactical. Saying you're going to be strategic is easy. Being strategic is hard because it requires you to be prepared to be wrong about some things. To be prepared to be aligned with a strategic plan, the first thing we have to get in line is funding. I mean, that goes without question. And it's already been said tonight, we also have to look at our facilities. We have to look at how long the buildings are going to last. I mean, a strategic plan is about all those things. Our budget is, I'm going to misquote it, but it's 80%, I think, salaries for the most part, or compensation. That makes your plan quite easy for the most part, which is to say, I better figure out how to pay for all of this. So our immediate concern on alignment is facilities and funding and making sure that our curriculum aligns with what the people in this community expect.
Mr. Taylor, same question.
Yeah, there's 7 pillars to the strategic plan, and it's always a good idea to put a strategy and vision together. However, there's some things within here, for example, requirement for service, for graduation, and there's also another one about creating health plans for students and their families. So there's definitely some things in here that we should review and make sure that they are aligned with what the values of Bay Village are. But I would like to return to this atmosphere of lack of communication and silence. And I have a friend who is on the Board of Education, and I had asked him, what's the protocol for the Board of Education? He said, well, we go through old business, go through new business, superintendent update, and then we have the public forum. I said, how does that work? He said, well, the public forum, citizen is supposed to submit their question 24 hours ahead, and then the board has time to review it, and then they come in during the board meeting and they have a dialogue about that. I said, that's brilliant. I do that with my clients all the time. We're going to have a meeting on Tuesday. Here's the questions we're going to review. And so I said, how does yours work? I said, well, it's a lottery system. You walk in, you get 5 minutes to speak, and they don't respond. He said, what? I said, no, the board is not allowed to respond. And he said, oh, I guess now I understand why you're running for the board.
Ms. Huntley, same question about how to prepare for the next 5.
So I am a planner by profession and I think by personality. We've had strategic plans in the past. We did one in 1997. I think the strategic plan is a good framework to outline the goals. Some of them are long-term, some of them are mid-term, some of them are short-term. But I think it's a way to really sit down and try and collaborate and determine what direction do we want to have the district go in? Where is our ultimate goal? What do we want to do? We know we need to prepare our students for when they leave Bay High, but what does that look like while they're here? We also need to factor in that there's buildings, and buildings need planning. The last time we did a strategic plan was just shortly before the middle school was determined to need to be replaced. So that was part of the strategic plan. It was determined the middle school was past its ability to be renovated and needed to be replaced. So buildings are a factor because without appropriate atmospheres in buildings, our students don't have a place to come and learn. So the strategic plan needs to take a look into all of the things, academics, athletics, and volunteer, all the things that we want to have our students set with when they leave Bay High. And we need to break them down into different categories, and then within those categories, break them down into action steps of what we want to see happen. And I think that the current strategic plan is a work in process, and it just needs to be reviewed to see if anything related to COVID changed what those goals might be.
Mr. Jones, strategic plan needs.
As Ms. Huntley just said, a lot of things are going into this. Obviously, buildings, teachers, administrators, training. The buildings, I think, is a big issue. Barnville and Westerly are getting up there in years. The new libraries being built in the city, I think, and the schools are going to joint own a retirement library. How do we take care of that? What do we do with that? If we need an issue with the buildings, can we use the bond market? Can we use funding from different sources? In terms of the education-wise and what we do with our strategic plan, I think we need to get the community more involved. I know in the recent board meetings they're talking about getting groups together. I think we need to do a widespread push on that. The 7 people up here alone are very different. We all have different, professional backgrounds, educational backgrounds. We're a town of 15,000 people. We can tap that market and find what is most important, be it how we lead and what are our goals and how are we going to train that. But we need input from everybody, not just a few, not just one group. Let's promote everybody in this town and go forward with that plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stojic.
One second. You're getting caught in your glasses here. That's not good.
So my role outside of running for the board is as the Associate Director of General Neurology for the Cleveland Clinic. My role has been to execute and provide neurologic services to 8 community hospitals across the 8 county area to better serve our community and provide top-notch care. When you do that, you have to have a vision, you have to have a mission. You have to outline what your goals are, and you have to bring in the appropriate stakeholders to execute that plan and create a culture of accountability that allows you to make sure that you're actually living up to the priorities that you've created. The strategic plan that we currently see is a vision statement. And contrary to some of what's been said, it's actually had collaborative input from many stakeholders in our community, including members of our government, members of our business community, our teachers, and our parents. It's reflective of a common vision of where we reaffirm our current goals and priorities and build on those. To that effect, we need to make sure that we bring those stakeholders back together so we can actually put substance to the bones of this plan, to actually articulate what that means and create the policies that we're going to do. And it'll be the responsibility of the board to make sure that we review and approve it, that it's consistent with our community needs and our shared values of academic excellence, and that we make sure we create that culture of accountability so in 5 years that we actually live up to the priorities we've laid out in that plan.
Thank you. Mr. Dwyer.
So I've had the responsibility for strategic planning at 3 different companies, including my current company, Highland Software. So my title is actually Senior Vice President of Product and Strategic Planning, and I'm not making that up. So I think I've got a lot of experience across multiple industries in having done strategic planning. What I appreciate about the way that this was done for the district is there was a lot of community involvement. There were teachers, administrators, students, community members, et cetera, various stakeholders to build that strategic plan. And I've read it myself, and I think that's fantastic. I think one of the areas of opportunity going forward is, in order to make a strategic plan become reality, is how do you take those ideas and develop action items and assign people who are responsible and figure out when you want to get those things accomplished. I think that's really important. There are some really important issues that we have to deal with, building and land utilization. What do we want to do with Glenview? Are there opportunities to partner with the city on the library, et cetera? I think those are things that we need to talk about as a community, but that's kind of my perspective.
Mr. Schulz, your views on preparing for strategic planning.
Thank you. I do hope we have a chance to talk about board meeting structure. I do think that'd be really an interesting conversation. I think about a strategic plan. I think it's been 15 years since Bay Schools had a strategic plan, and back, that's a great reminder. There was a town hall, remind everyone, back in 2004 is when Facebook was created. So the world has rapidly changed, and it's time for us to definitely move forward. Success really at this stage depends upon collaboration. It's been said, there are a number of folks that were involved in the planning for this outline, which is really where we are in the strategic plan. The constructs, the buckets have been created. Growth, excellence, service, balance, community, teamwork. We've got some really great buckets to work with, but we don't yet know how to fill those. I do have experience working in a nonprofit environment. I've been a part of 2 different large-scale strategic plans in higher education. And so as a board member, I think it's really important to lend expertise, to start to move those constructs into tangible goals, developing assessment measures. We want to make sure we understand not just what are the goals, but how are we going to measure those so that we do maintain a culture of continuous improvement. And we're also prepared. The state's changing its report card structure. It's going to start to look at language proficiency and teacher-student ratios as it thinks about assessment. So we've got to make sure that the strategic plan, as we put the meat behind it, is preparing us to move forward, but also to respond to some of those external threats and opportunities.
Thank you. We're doing swimmingly well with time frames. Thank you, candidates. The only problem is I have way more questions here than we can fit into the remaining time. So I'm going to throw this one to you in a little unusual way. I have a whole lot of questions about some citizen group activities that have been taking place in the community. Many of the people would like to know exactly where you stand on any of the things that they have seen in mailers and whatnot. I do not want to put you in that position to have to answer that directly. I'm hoping our audience will find ways to communicate directly with the candidates where they have that concern. And even our streaming audience can still find addresses and phone numbers and contact them. But what the question is for the school board is because even once the election's over, this is going to linger. And if some of the views are that the facts are not true, or there's one set of facts over here, and another set of facts over here, and what is right and what is wrong, how is the school board going to address that kind of a divide going forward in your community? I'm going to do that one just alphabetically. Mr. Dwyer.
Lucky me. But it is a great question, and one that's important. So, one of my pillars is working together. You heard me talk earlier about the fact that fear is not a strategy. I think we need to continue to be really transparent about the facts, not be misleading or misinformed in the information that we're sharing. I feel strongly about one of my problems, my own personal problems, is I can't be anything but genuine. What you see is what you get. I'm a terrible liar, and I really firmly believe in telling the truth, whether people want to hear it or not. And I think if we as a board are functioning in a manner that is, trying to bring people together with the intent of making ourselves better, even if we disagree, by talking about the facts in an objective manner, listening to others' perspectives, that's really the way that I want to work. And so, I can't speak to all of the things. I think it is a tough question, but that's the way that I want to work, is work collaboratively and together, because I think that gives us a future direction and hope for the district.
Ms. Huntley.
I am a huge believer in unity while at the same point respecting different opinions. So we are a unique community. Everybody has different opinions. I think it's important, like I've said before, that we come together, we find common ground that we can agree on and move forward. The postcards that were referenced in the question, it reminds me of back in the early 90s when we had organized opposition to the levies, and flyers and information was put out that was misleading or out of context or just flat out inaccurate. And it's frustrating because it's done in an anonymous way. So I applaud the district for setting up the frequently asked questions section on the website to get the clarification on some of the points that are on the postcards. But I think what we need to do as a community is we need to sit down and have some dialogue. The board meeting is technically the place for the board to conduct its business in the public. That is not a public forum. The board has created opportunities for people to come in the board meeting, but I think it needs to go beyond the board meeting. We need to sit down, have small groups. The town hall meetings were a start. We did the same thing back many years ago when there was concerns about math curriculum. And we got the superintendent and the curriculum director, sat down with a group of parents that had concerns and some of the math teachers, and just had dialogue to come to a better understanding.
Thank you. Mr. Jones.
Thank you. I want to say something first off is that I'm not a Facebook user right now, but I've been presented posts from people in the community. Number one, I'm a very personal person. I'm at Mojo's every day. 90% of my free time is at Fields. I'm open to talk to anybody. And in the past month, I've probably spoken to about 1,000 people in Bay Village. And in the past few days, I've been called a Trumper, part of a group. I've never even visited a group's website, the Citizens Transparency. So I want to make that very clear. I'm not supported or endorsed by that group, BVAN, or any other group in Bay Village. And what I plead to people here and online is, if you want to know what I'm about and what I stand for, come and talk to me. I'll be at Mojo's every day at 7. I'll be in my town. People can reach me. I'm a very public person. My wife's a very public person. Please, just before you say something about me, ask me. We might not agree, and that's okay. That's part of politics. That's part of what's running for. But my whole thing in terms of this going forward is we need to unify, and we need to get people together. And in terms of the board, I know there's procedures in place, but I look at city council, and I've been to those meetings too. If they can communicate back with the public, how can the school board not? And understand the small group thing, but sometimes people want to have dialogue in large groups. And if someone answers a question, the person next to them might want the answer too. And giving it in a 4-day response in email form doesn't really help. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mosier.
I want to make sure I understand the question. The question was about a grassroots group.
Well, what can school board members do?
I understand. I just want to reiterate to make sure I'm actually answering the proper question. What can we do in view of the fact that there might be some rancor or division depending upon the outcome of the election? I think it's safe to say, regardless of how the vote comes out, there are going to be groups in town that are disappointed. It's okay to be disappointed, and I think that there were grassroots groups last year that wanted things to change, and I believe the community and the school district engaged those groups, and some positive things occurred. I say this because I suspect when you look at the 7 of us up here, we probably agree on about 75% of everything. And all of us agree on enough that we can work together. Any combination of the 7 of us can probably make this crazy machine work. So what do? I think we need to do a better job of listening. There's a lot of misinformation, and it's not, I don't think it's on purpose. I do think that if there's a grassroots group that has a concern, again, regardless of whether I actually agree with their premise, we need to do a better job of listening to them and letting them know they're being listened to so that we can come up with a way to address their concerns. Regardless of where, again, I say this regardless of where I stand specifically on those concerns.
Thank you. Mr. Schulz.
Yeah, I think the majority of people are tired of the drama, the misinformation. They just want to know that their kids are in school, that they're doing well. They want to feel like they're part of one rocket nation again, and we're not constantly fighting each other over masks. I know there's been frustrations over the structure of the board meetings. I think we should revisit some of the structure of the board meetings. Admittedly, my first 6 months of the board, I think maybe one person came to one of those meetings. It did allow for a dialogue, and then, last May I was the board was accused of being child abusers to talk about how masks and mask mandates, what that might mean. So things got incredibly hostile very quickly. I think there were some updates to the structure to try to provide more information at the front end of the meetings, and then hopefully address some of those concerns. But those have not been the most productive meetings, and we need to revisit how to make those more productive. I think we need to start using Facebook to share baby pictures and cat videos again. I mean, it's gotten so out of control online. And let's just make the school board boring again. I mean, that's really what we need to be doing, productive and boring. Thank you.
Mr. Stojic.
So, Bay Village is a special place. You learn that immediately when you move here. The reason is because of our community. That no matter our political ideology, no matter where we fall on the spectrum, we've always come together for the common good of our community. And that's included our schools. We've created a city where people want to come to because it nurtures children, makes them better human beings and outstanding students. That's what we have to remember, because this election is really about who we are and what we stand for. It's unfortunate that this campaign began with postcards that really started to spread misinformation, sow distrust and division in our community. And it's regrettable that we have this bickering and interfighting that's occurring on social media and in the public. That's exactly, I think, what it's intended to do. And I don't think that it's productive for our community. I think as a board member after this election, we need to go ahead and work towards reunifying. We need to remember who we are. We need to remember what makes us great and recommit ourselves to working together for the best interest of our children in our school district. So that means that we re-engage, that we deal in facts and not fiction, and that we reject this kind of politics and this kind of divisiveness and say that it has no place in our community.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor, same question.
As a business management consultant for over 30 years and an adjunct professor at Case Western Reserve University, I have a proven track record on building trust through open and inclusive dialogue. And the example that was just provided with regards to the Board of Education is exactly the opposite of what we teach our students to do. We train them to build relationships, to find common ground, to find common attributes. That's the foundation that gets built. We don't separate, categorize, and isolate. That's what the virus does. We don't need to manifest that in what we do in a board meeting. When you have challenges, you bring people closer. You're more frequently working with them. You don't push them away. You don't sit them down and say, we know what's best. Sit there, be quiet, we're not going to respond to you. And it's just amazing that the board would go in that direction at this particular time in history, when you need to pull people in, you need to have those discussions. And that would be one of the first things I do on the Board of Education is get rid of this no response policy that is absolutely ridiculous and unproductive. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will now go to our final question for the evening, and we'll go back to my random picking on you variously. I had a very league-like question ready. It was, how will the school system benefit from your service on the school board? Somebody sent in a card that says it even better. What is the one reason to vote for you? Mr. Jones.
Thank you. The one reason to vote for me, I mean, besides my personality, good looks, I don't know, but anyways, kidding. Anyways, as I've said from the start, I love Bay Village, and there's nothing I want to do more than make sure our schools stay where they've been. I was a proud product of this, graduating from Ohio University after graduating from Bay High School. And again, I have family members, friends, a lot of people that come through the school system, and it did great things for a lot of people. And what I want to do is make sure that my sons, who are in 1st and 3rd grade, their friends, and other children that will be coming through the school district have the same great opportunity that I have. We had great teachers, we have great teachers. We have unbelievable administrators. Let's not screw with it. Let's just keep what we've had going for the last 5, 6 decades. As I'm looking out there, Doug Borchard, one of my biggest role models, Tom Kaiser, Lynn Aaron. These are people who made my life and shaped how the person I am. Let's keep that going. and let's have the same opportunities for all the next generation. We're a great school district, we're a great city, we're a one rocket nation. I just want to keep that going. Thank you.
Mr. Schulz, same question.
I really see this election as an opportunity for us to reaffirm our values as a community. Community values such as respect, safety, inclusion. Bay Village never gives up on a commitment to evolving and getting better. Recently there have been efforts to try to work toward a Purple Star designation, and the commitment that we have to recognize that we have a number of military families coming into our community now. What are we going to do to connect them to resources, connect them and integrate them within our community? And so it's just another opportunity for us to grow and evolve. And I think that at the end of all of this, we've got to make sure that whoever's elected, first and foremost, is willing to commit to those community values. This isn't about our own individual values, it's what we share together. And I appreciate your support, your consideration as we continue to move this district toward incredible challenges. We got to face some incredible challenges, but no doubt about it. We collaborate and do that together in a respectful way. We trust each other. We've got to rebuild trust in so many respects. But we're going to be okay. We're going to continue to be that award-winning district that we have so much incredible pride in, that many of us were brought here for, and we continue to stay in this community to be a part of. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Stojic, your reason.
I think on a fundamental level, it's that I believe in all of you. I believe in what our community can do. I believe our shared voices will make an outstanding school system. We've done it before, we're doing it today, and we'll do it in the future. I certainly believe that I have the skills from my leadership in healthcare. I have a dedication and a passion and a commitment to whatever I do that will help as an asset to the other board members and help lead us and guide us into a much better future for our school district. But ultimately, again, I believe in your voices. I believe that you all share in our values. I believe that your voices are important and will help us to make a better school system. And so if I'm elected on the board, I will be that person that listens to you. I will be that person that becomes your advocate and your voice on the board and to the school district. And I will work tirelessly to make sure that we maintain our commitment and reaffirm our school and our policies, that they reflect our community needs, our shared values, and our commitment to giving the best educational opportunity for our children.
Thank you. Ms. Huntley.
I would say, like I started off with, the characteristic about me that anybody that knows me knows, I've been passionate about education. I believe education is the foundation of all of our futures. I want to have, when I am in my 80s and retiring, I want to have the best educated people in Congress making the decisions they can and leading our country. That said, I've put my passion into practice for the last 30 plus years as my kids have gone through the school, as I went through the schools. Bay Schools is what brought my parents here in the mid-70s. It's what's kept me here to raise my children. And in a few short years, my grandchildren will start at Normandy, and I want them to have the same experience. I feel that my objective and how I manage things and trying to move my passion into practice is I like to collect a lot of viewpoints. I like to hear from people, talk to people, people call me, stop me places. I like to hear a collective viewpoint and then build on that, because we aren't all the same and we don't all agree on everything. So we need to find that collective viewpoint that we can all move forward on and make the best education program for our kids.
Thank you. Mr. Mosier.
I was taking notes. The one reason you should vote for me. I am a decisive and critical thinker. That's what I do. What does it mean? I get things done. I trust my judgment. As people say, I trust my judgment because I never think I'm wrong. And luckily for me, I'm so rarely wrong that works out in the end. I am a collector of information. I am a sponge. I want to know everything there is to know about everything. That's what I do. I'm really good at it. I love talking to people and listening to that. I love taking information and synthesizing it, finding patterns when other people don't see it. That's what makes a strategic thinker. To figure out what the future looks like when no one else can see it. That's what I do. That's what I love to do. That's what I do at work. They pay me to do that. That's why I actually love going to work still, although I work in my basement half the time. But that's what I'll do for the people of Bay Village. I am not running against any of these 6 people up here. I am running for you to bring those skills to Bay Village and be the critical thinker and the leader that you need for the next 4 years, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor.
As a businessman and educator, I have a unique skill set that is desperately required for the Board of Education. And I can bring those skills that I mentioned with regards to building relationships and instilling trust and improving communications. Actually, with regards to the work I do in consulting, we come into and work with companies that are having troubles with regards to technology, process, or people. And we help them get through this. And this would be a case study and something that I've done dozens of times throughout my career of how we can fix it. And there's some very strategic things that we can do immediately, tactically, that we can do to improve the relationship between the board and the community. As I mentioned, we have excellent teachers who are committed to enriching our children's lives in a fair and productive manner. And we also have candidates up here who have made mistakes that they admitted and want to change things. However, it was generated by the same group. So why would we go back to the group that generated the problems we're trying to solve? So we really need a fresh start. And if I expect that we'll have that opportunity on November 2nd, and I would love your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dwyer, right. I checked them all carefully.
Thank you. One Rocket Nation. One Rocket Nation is passionate about the success of its school district. They're passionate about the success of the community. I'm part of that. As I've said, a lifelong resident. I've got a bachelor's and master's in engineering and an MBA because of the public school education I received here and the teachers who made such an incredible impact on my life. I want that for our kids and our kids' kids and their kids' kids. I want that for the long term for the district. We've got a lot of important stuff in front of us. I have skills in hiring at the executive level for more than 20 years. I've managed budgets from $25 million to $700 million. So fiscal responsibility is not something that scares me. I listen a lot. I talk to a lot of different people, whether it's teachers or students. That's an important voice in all of this, is our students as well. Our students care about their mental health. It's a really big deal these days. We've lost, at least over the last 18 years, 18 students to suicide. That's something that schools can help with. And I'm passionate about listening and learning. I'm a lifelong learner and understanding other people's perspectives so we can work together to make this One Rocket Nation as awesome as it has been. That's why I think you should vote for me.
Thank you. I'm going to make sure that there's plenty of time to meet with the candidates in the hallway after this. But I think you deserve to know the wisdom that our audience has had in some of the questions that have come in. So I'm basically addressing this to the candidates. I'm giving you a summary of the kinds of other questions that we weren't able to deal with. Quite a few curriculum questions. How do you help ensure that schools with LGBTQ populations are treated inclusively? How do you ensure that the social and emotional learning needs of our children are met? How can you be sure that students get a comprehensive science-based sex education program. Moving a little away from that, but somewhat connected, many people are kind of confused about how a school board even knows what community values there are and which are the ones that are the most cherished and need to be monitored and maintained. A lot of other questions here about what you will do. For example, at the end of the school board term, what would be the one measurable task that you achieve to move the district into a better position? What do you have for short-term and for long-term goals for your four-year position? Tell us a strength of Bay Schools other than, quote, stellar education. And here's another curious one. What one thing would you change in the Bay Schools if you had that ability to do so? And similarly related, what element of Bay Schools is the most important to preserve and defend? And what element is the most important to add or improve? And this is a very appropriate ending question. We had questions about the place of prayer and religion in schools. Here's another one. It's a good thinking one as you go away. If you're not elected, what is your plan to help Bay Village schools and education? And they're looking for specific examples. So some of you have a chance to meet the candidates in the hall if you wish and ask these questions and get those direct answers. I want to thank all of the people involved with putting this program together tonight. I'll point out the timekeeper who has to look, and the assistant timekeeper who have to look at the clock so constantly I don't know if they heard a thing. We have an amazing league crew that's been working for, I think, months on this, but certainly tonight have worked very hard to deal with all of the answers in our new format of having some of them come in and email, and there'll probably be some still tomorrow, ladies. Then what will you do? We are indebted to our technician who has made it very apparent to the candidates that Bay Village needs good school facilities so we can have forums like this. Thank you very much. We have a technical person at the back of the room who's taking care of what will become a YouTube in a couple of days. So it takes a lot of people, and as they always say, it takes a village to raise a child. So here we go. Tell your friends and neighbors that they can watch this on YouTube, and it's too complicated. I think there's going to be words that they can find, but the main thing to remember is go to the League of Women Voters of Greater Cleveland, and then look for YouTube forums. We've got them for many cities. You may have to sort, because we've been doing this all over the place this season. Election day is Tuesday, November the 2nd. The polls will be open from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. It's too late to register to vote or to change your address or your name, but you can ask for a mail-in ballot and do it soon. There are going to be hours of early voting available only at the Board of Elections office at 30th and Euclid in Cleveland. It's not as extensive a schedule as we saw for last year's presidential election, but it is available. And go to the website there, and I think maybe in some of your handout material there may be some dates there. I also would remind you to look at the National League voter information page called Vote 411. And there's a website there, and not all candidates choose to respond, but you'll find a lot of information about the ones who have done this. And you're able to build a sample ballot and read questions and responses. And the more people who look at that, the easier it is for us to convince candidates to be involved. So we ask you to linger in the lobby a little bit, pick up some more material. Our candidates have materials out there. And we especially thank our candidates for putting all this thought and energy into these questions that your community cares so deeply about. Good night.